As you may have figured out by now, I've had a few technical glitches, so if you would bear with me, I think we'll be able to get started now. I've had to make some minor adjustments. They're a little bit abnormal from what I normally do, but we'll go ahead and jump in. This session is designed to give you a few tips on how you might use IDEA that you haven't presently done. And let me see if by any miracle I'm having trouble with my displays behaving properly. If I can get my PowerPoint to show up. And it's quite ironic that I've done 3 webinars today and it's only misbehaving on this one. So unfortunately what you'll see is my PowerPoint in slide sorter view for right now, and I apologize for that, but we'll get the job done with this. Most of what you'll be seeing here is going to be IDEA presented live. But as far as the best kept secrets of IDEA, these are just little, some of them are very minor little tips and tricks. Others are some very cool features that if you don't know of, we're going to show you how to work with these. One of the things that we're going to do here is the best kept secret number 1 is filtering or extracting. And if you didn't know this, you can actually do some filtering versus extracting. I tell you what, because of my PowerPoint problem, I'm going to do all this live in the IDEA software. You will receive the PowerPoint email to you that'll have all these slide shots, but I'm just going to do this live. If you have a file open in IDEA, a lot of people that I've taught in classes have been doing things like this, going out and going direct extraction, and we'll call it whatever, and they'll be doing a criteria and they'll be playing with their amount and saying, I think I want anything over $10,000. Well, you can do that, but when you do it in this direct extraction method, you're automatically going to create a data file. And if I do that and I get 74 records and then I look at it and say, gee, I wish I had made that, maybe 50,000 would have been a better cutoff point. What I'm kind of forced to do then is close this file, delete it, and redo that. So what I want to show you, if you're not familiar with it, over here in the Properties window, the Criteria button, I like to call this the try before you buy method. I'm going to go down here to Sales Before Tax, and I'm going to experiment with this cutoff amount. I'm going to put in 50,000, and the try before I buy method, as I call it, is showing me, okay, this method would give you 16 records. I can look at those and I can kind of say, maybe I'll make it 75,000. By filtering, I've done nothing permanent, and I can play with that criteria until I get this just the way I want it. So then when I've decided that's really what I want, I'll go ahead and hit the direct extraction and say these are my high value items, and I'll click OK. So just a little tip to say, instead of creating a lot of extractions, sometimes what you might want to do is do a criteria first before you extract, and sometimes you may not even need to extract the criteria. It's just a quick look-see, and then you're done. Once you've done a criteria, to clear that criteria, you simply right-click on the criteria, and that file is now playing back with the full deck. Okay, the next thing I'd like to show you is another method. If you haven't used this, it's absolutely fantastic. When I do a criteria, you may have been accustomed to typing in formulas like product code equal to quote 05 with the quotes around it, and absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is a valid criteria, but let me show you a quicker method of doing a formula. I'm going to clear that criteria, and I'm going to put my mouse over here on top of an 05, and I'm going to right click on that and say display all records containing quote 05. And then this gives me the formula product code, the double equal 05. Just click OK to that. And you can see that that's put in the formula as if you had typed it. Now, in addition to that, you can say, you know, maybe I want to build a compound formula. I want it when it's product code 05 and maybe only when it's, let's say, sales rep 102. So I can right-click on top of my sales rep 102, display all records, and notice that this will build the AND formula. So I can click OK there. And that has now 27 records filtered. And if there was something else and then I wanted to say, and maybe, you know, quantity greater than 200, I can continue the right-clicking method and work my way into a fairly compound formula here. So if you weren't aware of that, the display all records containing is a quick way. That's our tip number 2 that will be in your PowerPoint. And I've abandoned the PowerPoint because I have an issue with my computer. I'm not sure what it is, so I'm just going to do it all live for you, but you will get the PowerPoint emailed to you. Okay, I'm going to unmute, and Lindsay, if you ever need to speak up and comment on this, you're our moderator, so feel free to. I'm going to be watching the question window. If you have any questions, feel free to enter those. The questions I've seen so far have been just related to the technical difficulties I was having, so I think we don't have any new questions at this point. All right, the next feature I'm going to show you is, I'm going to clear this filter now. If you've been performing extractions, so let's say you're going over here and you're going to analysis direct, and maybe you're extracting out separate sales reps. So you put in sales rep 101 and you go in here and you build the formula up equal to 101. And if you do this, the sales rep is a character field, so you have to put that in quotes. And then if you doing multiple extractions, you may be doing this. And this certainly works, but it's not the most efficient way. So you can see I could continue making multiple extractions there, and I could click OK, and that would sure enough give me those extractions. But let me show you a feature, an idea. If you haven't used it, I'm going to delete those. I'm going to go to Analysis Key Value Extraction. So what this will allow me to do under existing keys, I'm going to click on the ellipse button here, and I'm going to choose Sales Rep. And this will very quickly tell me that I have 27 unique key values in the database. Notice down here at the bottom, the Create Separate Database, it will by default create a separate database. I'm going to prefix each of those with the word Sales Rep. And I'm just going to click OK at this point. And what you will see now is that I created, you can see down here in my File Explorer window, 21 separate databases just that quickly. Now, let me show you something else that could be done here. I'm going to go ahead and delete those. If I go back to that key value extraction and choose Sales Rep, you can obviously create the 27 separate databases, but often what is needed is perhaps not necessarily a separate database for each sales rep, but maybe I want to include only specific sales reps. So I can hit the clear all and I can just say I want this rep, this rep, this rep, this rep, and I can scroll through here and pick and choose the reps that I wanted. That would have been equivalent to if I had said sales rep equal 102 or 108 or etc. And then also, if I want to look at only these particular records, but only when they're over a certain dollar threshold, my criteria here, I can click on criteria and I can put in an amount, let's say sales before tax, only when it's greater than or equal to, say, 5,000. So I can use the key value either to create a lot of separate databases or to create one database containing separate values in that. And then I just click OK. So the key value extraction is a big time saver. Now I had a question come in. I'm going to address these if they pertain. Is there a way to save the, I think you're talking about criteria. So let me go back into the detailed sales area, and under criteria, if you've, let's say I built the criteria using my right-click method, and then maybe I want it when it's, that probably wasn't a great example, but if I have this criteria, you can save criteria. It's your criteria that you want to save. You can click the Save button and, call it My Equation Selected Reps or something, and hit Save, and the formula is there available to you later if you want to apply that formula. I believe that answered the question. I'm going to go ahead and click Clear to that. Okay, and I had another question, and I may have to save some of these till the end, but I'll try to do this very quickly. If I wanted to do sales rep is not, they asked for an example of not 101. So if I right-click on that, display all records containing, under my operators here, I have all my operands. The not equal to is the algebraic symbol, the less than or greater than. I simply click that and click OK. And then I could say, and not equal to product code 05, I think was your example in your question, display all records not 05. So your right-click method, you can work into those formulas either equal to, not equal, or greater than, etc. All right, I'm going to clear that criteria. So far we've looked at, first of all, the fact that you can do a criteria instead of a lot of different extractions. If you do extractions, you can use your right-click method to create your criteria. And the third tip was the key value extraction, which lets you very quickly create either a lot of separate databases or a single database using a lot of different variables. Now the next feature I'm going to show you is a great feature. It's called comparing databases. And let's say that we have, looks like I have two sales files here. I have a detailed sales file for this year, and I have one for the previous year. I'll go ahead and open those both up. On the previous year in total, I've got 6,103,000, and on the current detailed sales, I've got 12,563,000. So obviously, I've got some differences. If I want to do a very quick comparison of what was the change, let's say by product between the 2 years, what I can do is go to the Analysis menu option and click Compare. And I want to remind you again that when you have the PowerPoint, this information will be available to you in that. So under the total field, I'm going to choose, like, let's say sales before tax. And under the secondary database, I'm going to click the Select menu and I'll choose sales detail previous year. And I'll be comparing the same sales before tax in both instances. And I'm going to call this compare current year sales to prior year sales. And I'm going to match on whatever field I want to compare by. Let's say I want to compare it by product code. And then I'll click OK. So this shows me my 2 years. I have 6 different product codes. Now the field names are a little bit cryptic, but once you understand what they mean, it's not so bad. P total stands for primary. S stands for secondary. So I'm going to relabel these fields very quickly. I'm just going to call this current year sales, and this is prior year sales. Forget the fact that I can't type. And then this very quickly shows me I have a huge increase in product code 06, a small increase in 05, and then decreases in the other products. Now, if you're not familiar with that file compare, it's great for doing any kind of numeric comparisons on fixed assets, on inventory, on sales, accounts payable. Let me hit the rerun and I'll show you if I also want to take this sales year and compare it by sales rep and see, okay, which reps were selling more. I can hit my rerun, just use the sales rep key, click OK, and OK again. And again, I might want to change those field names to show current year or prior year, but this can very quickly isolate my differences. So sales rep 108, if I index it on difference, there are my 2 huge increases for those sales reps. Okay, I have a question coming in about the compare feature. And it says, for instance, what if there was a new product this year, would it just show 0 for last year? Absolutely. Let's see if I have any of that. If I were to index on the prior year, you could see here sales rep 126 apparently was new in the current year, but in the prior year was 0, so it will show you zeros. Wow, lots of questions. Those are great. Can you show the comparison setup window and explain the match part? Yes, let me pull this back up. The match part is simply telling the software what is the common field between the 2 files that you want to compare by. The first time I ran it, I said, let me look at what is different between product codes, and I got that little file that showed me the 6 product codes and how much in this year and prior year. The second time I ran it, I said, let me look at sales reps who sold more this year versus prior year. So it's simply a matter of determining which field you want to compare by. For this example of what I've got to work with, I guess the only other thing I could kind of imagine comparing would maybe be by the customer, and that would make sense. Which customer is buying more this year versus last year? So I'm going to go through this. Let me close out all these files so that you get a nice clean, fresh look. Here's my detail sales. I can go to analysis, compare, and I'm going to choose the field. Again, I'm using the sales dollars, but you could use quantity if you wanted to. And I'm going to compare it to sales for the prior year. And the match says, okay, this time I want to compare it by customer number. Who's buying more this year than last year? And obviously I should be naming this file sales by customer this year versus last. So there you have your percent total. This is current year, prior year, and the S total is prior year. And then I've got my difference. And then someone asked, about would it compare 5 years of information. You could do that. You would have to keep appending, and now you would take this file and append it with another year. Other questions that came in, I probably won't get to all of these questions, but let's see what else I could get to really quickly. Someone asked about, could you calculate the percentage? Definitely, you just add a field and take your difference divided by your base year and calculate the percent. That would not be a problem. Okay, let me monitor my time a little bit and the questions. Let's see. The only thing, a question came in about the drill down on this. In this case, you cannot drill down on the records. That was by design. What this file compare does, in case you're wondering, is it first summarizes both of your source files, and it does an all records in both join, and it automatically calculates the difference field. So what they did is they in the script that's written to do this, they've deleted the underlying summarization, so the P number of records, the drill down, is not available to you there. Let's see. And then another question came in, can you compare more than one field when you're doing your comparison? Yes, you can. If I wanted to compare by customer and by product, I could do that as well. So you could do that comparison. Obviously, you're just going to get a higher level of detail here, but that would also work. So you could see by customer, by product, which is where the increases or decreases are. Can you explain what the rerun button is? Certainly, I've been using a lot. Whatever I just performed, an idea, if I click the rerun, it will automatically pull back up the buttons I had selected, basically, and that enabled me to, for the question came in, just go into the match button and choose additional fields there. Or I could change this perhaps to run if I wanted to see quantity. The rerun would keep all my settings, and then I would just run it on quantity instead of dollars. Okay, and a question came up, is it possible to get the sample idea files using this webinar? This sample file, if you go to your Home tab and click on Select, you will find in your sample, when you buy the software, there is a sample project created for you called Samples, and I believe that these files, yeah, sample detail sales and sample prior year is out there. So those two files are available to you. So let me go back to my project. So yes, you can play with this on a practice data file, or better yet, take one of your real clients and practice that. So that's file comparison. Other examples of file comparison, a good one that you might want to consider, and this is in your PowerPoint, is looking at fixed assets current year versus prior year. A great way to identify additions and disposals, inventory current year, prior year, payables by vendor current year, prior year, and of course your GL balances by account current year, prior year. Now, file compare is designed for comparing numeric fields, but I want to talk about the possibility that you're trying to compare company files that don't necessarily have a numeric field. For example, I'm going to open this vendor master here. This is a vendor master file that has just a vendor name and some other, user name, address. There's not a numeric field in this file, and I want to compare it. This is the old vendor master, So I've got 35, and these are very scaled down little files. I've got 35 records in the new master and 32, so obviously something has changed. If I want to see what's changed, if I go to File Compare, it's going to require that I compare a numeric field. So I've got a little trick that I do here, and that's just simply to add, and this is going to look silly, but I'm going to add a numeric field to each of these files, and I'm just call it count, and I'll make it virtual numeric, and I'm going to put a value of 1 in there. And then in the old vendor master, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a field, and all I want is some kind of number, and I'm going to put a 1 in that file. Now scroll over. What I've done to each of those files is added a value of 1 in a count field. Nothing too exciting, but what that enables me to do now is take my new vendor master, compare it. So I'm going to go over here to compare again, and I'm going to compare it, and I have to have a numeric. So I have one numeric field, that's my count. I'm going to compare it to the old vendor master, and here's my old vendor master, and I'm going to match on, I guess I probably want to know the vendor name, who's new to the vendor master in the current year or who might have dropped out of the old year, whichever way, and I'll click OK. And I'll call it compare new vendor to old vendor and click OK. And now this looks extremely odd because you've got all these ones here, but what I really care about is when do I have a difference. So if I use my right-click method, I can display all records not equal to 0, and then this becomes a little bit more easy to read. I can see I have 3 vendors that had a count of 1 in the new vendor file and were not in the old vendor file. So those are my 3 vendors. And if I had some that were in the old that were not in new, those would show as a -1, and they would show on here as well. So that concept, it's simple, but if you try to compare files that don't have a numeric, consider using just adding a count field. Okay, let's see. Now I'm going to do a little bit of, let me see if there are any questions that I have caught up with. Okay, can I match a PDF file with an Excel file? Yes, you have to import both of those, both the PDF and the Excel file, into IDEA. Once they become an IDEA file, which has an IMD extension, for example, these sales files, this could have been from an Excel file and the other could have been from a PDF. As long as they're imported, then they're in a common format. And let's see, could you please show how you made all rows have a value of 1 in the new count column? Yes, I probably went through that a little bit quick. Let me open up this vendor master, and I'll tell you what, I'll just delete this field so you can see me do it again. So here's my vendor master. There are no numeric fields. I click on append, and I just put count, and it's going to be, I can make it virtual numeric or numeric. One of the other questions came in as to what is the difference, but I'll make it virtual numeric, and the virtual says if I mess up my formula, I can change it. So I'll just put a 1 in there, hit the green check, and that basically is just pre-filling it with a value of 1. Okay. Now let's see. I'm going to close out. I think I've caught up with the questions again. Let me close out of these files, and now we're going to get into our last tips for the day, which involve importing data, and this first one is going to be a special little feature we have. So let me go to the Home tab and click on the desktop icon, which is what any import will start with. I'm going to go here to a print report, and I'm going to choose the file called ABC Income Statement. And I've selected this report for a couple of reasons. One, it's exceedingly small, so it's easy to present. You can see the entire report on your screen. So at first glance, this looks like an exceedingly simple report. The trick here is, if I'm going to make this into an idea file, I have to do my template. So the first thing I do is highlight that row and click Create Standard Layer. Now the trick to this one is the trap statement. If I were to try to put a text trap, that would obviously not work. If I were to try to put, I don't know, a numeric here, the numeric is including the ledger total. If I try just a decimal point, that works, except it's including the ledger total. In fact, I could play with every possible thing imaginable here, and this is a print report where there is just not a perfect trap. So I'm going to show you a little feature that we have. So sometimes you get a report, there is no perfect trap. You get it as close as you can get it. So I'm going to make this column, that's my account name, and it's going to be a character field. And then the trick to this, I do not want the line that says ledger total. So I'm going to go slow on this because I'm thinking you probably haven't ever used this. On the right hand side under field details, under filters, there's include, exclude. If I click on the three dots next to the all button, and I'm going to click exclude record with the following data, and then I'm going to type in, and this is case sensitive, it has to be exactly ledger space total, the L and the T capitalized, then click add, then click OK. Then if I move over to my next field, I'm going to go ahead and make that. Once I hit my green check, let me preview it for you. You'll see that that line is not coming in, and I have to actually click off of that first field so that it makes the ledger total disappeared, if that makes any sense. But that exclude line feature, the filtering, I'll bring this back up so you can see it. When it says ledger total, I just add that into that particular column setting, and that will eliminate that line. Now let me show you another way. I'm going to close this out. Just not save anything there. Let me go back in and show you another option. I'll go ahead and put my filter back in, and if I make this column, and I'll go ahead and make this one. Now another option is to exclude a line, and I kind of call this the shoot it method. Is I go over here to the left, if I get my mouse to cooperate, next to the ledger total line I can position my mouse out to the far left, and I can click over there and click the red X, and it's a little bit of screen delay there, but you should see that line disappears. Now that is a method that will work. It's not the best method in the world. It does work, but if you were to use this template the next month, that would specifically have shot a certain line number. It's line 23. So if you have a one-time only template, it's fine to use that method. But let me shoot that thing again so that it kind of brings it back to life. The better method again would be to use, under the filter, under include and exclude, something that is specific about that line, ledger, space total, click add, click OK. And I think I just did the include, my bad. I'm so sorry. Let me cancel that. I did an include. That was an extra tip at no extra charge by accident. Let's do this thing again. There's my trap statement. All right. Here are my two columns that I want. And on this one, I'll go down here, exclude record with ledger space total. And if I click that, you can see now that that does exclude. Question came in about, does the red X method for excluding lines work for all lines or just the one it was clicked on? The answer is just the one it was clicked on. So if you had multiple, let's say, subtotals, you would have to click on each one of the subtotals. Whereas the exclude method, anywhere it said ledger total throughout the report, that would work. And as well, next month, if you get the same file, but perhaps there are more accounts, then your next month template would be excluding specifically ledger total. Okay, lots of good questions. The wildcard does not, the filtering does not allow wildcards with that. You would have to do specific words. It doesn't allow wildcard search. That was a question that came in. Okay, let's see. It says, how would you add the other columns when there are empty spaces in some of the accounts? Okay, let me click that real quick. I'm going to go back into my layer manager, and the other columns I would just simply highlight, even though there are some areas, obviously an amount can't be a debit and a credit at the same time, so I would just highlight these and credit numeric 2. I don't think I ever named these, so I'll go ahead and give those some names. So that's the way, if you have some cells that have a blank, I think that was your question, you simply highlight that field, and if it's a numeric field, those empty cells will come in as 0, which is what you would want. Okay, I'm going to save that template and import it. And I think we're scheduled for about 50 minutes. So I've got about 10 more minutes that I can do my last tip here. And this is again on a print or PDF file. So let me close out of this. And I'm going to go to my import assistant. By the way, if the things that I'm showing you on print report PDF imports are foreign to you or very new, like I've never done this before, we have another webinar that you might want to attend. It's called Getting Started with IDEA, and it's designed to go through these basic steps a little bit slower than what I'm doing. But I'm assuming you have basic knowledge of print report imports. So I'm not taking the time to go through every step that I'm doing here. Okay, so if you have a file that has, let's say, multiple lines per employee, in this case it's a payroll master file, each employee has 2 lines of data, what I can do here is highlight both rows and as my layer, my sample line, and then what I want to do here is put in a trap statement. and both rows will be captured based on whatever I put in as the trap statement. So the easiest thing I see right here is an employee number. Now I'm going to put in, I could put in just a numeric right there for an employee number. I would scroll down, look at my report, and yes, all employees do have a numeric, and they all do start in the first position. As kind of an extra tip here, one thing I would recommend is you do have to know your data to know if that is true of all employees, and if you have 100,000 lines, you don't want to look at all of those. I might choose a trap that is perhaps more reliable, such as a date of birth. If every employee should have a date of birth, then I might just use in this case there is a decimal in the separator between year, month, and day. I could use that as my trap statement. In any event, when I do this, what I'm going to do is just highlight my fields. You know, I would go over here and give them field names. And this is their last name. And I'll just skip the initials to give you a feel. This is their date of birth. And on your dates, if you haven't figured this out yet, dates are a little bit particular. They have to be exactly the right length. And that 9/11/76, my instinct would be to say that's month, day, year, but I have to look at the data, and if I look down at row 2, there's a 15, so obviously that's day. And then I'll just go over here and grab the grade, the department, and when I get to my second row, I just keep highlighting these fields. That's their insurance ID. This is the route number for their banking, I guess. Have to watch it because it thinks it's a date. It's not, it's a character field. And then here's their bank account. And their salary. So I'm going to take that, apply the green check. I'll go ahead and scan for errors to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. And then I'm going to click the preview data. And what you should see is that each of those employees, where they were 2 rows of stacked information, IDEA will take it and take every one of those columns and put it on one row so that each employee has 1 row per employee. And I've got some comments about awesome, first time I've seen that. That's good. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any questions on this multiple line. Whoops, one just, let's see. I do see some other questions. So let me, if there are no questions on this particular report, I'll just make a couple of comments here. Where I had 2 rows per employee highlighted, the multiple row feature can go up to 30 rows deep. So if every employee had 30 rows, then you could just highlight 30 rows and start making the columns. Where I've seen that used is on maybe some forms like a 1099 or a W-2 that was PDF'd, where there would be multiple employees, but they all had the same type of information. It was a consistent number of rows. Now the questions were just coming in, what if it's inconsistent? If it's inconsistent, some people have 3 rows of data, some have 5, some have 2, then you have to approach that template differently, and probably your best bet there would be to go with 1 row at a time and do append layers for the extra rows. But on those, you could call our help desk and they could look at your specific report to see if there's a better approach, but that's the general rule there. Okay, let me go ahead and save this template and import it. And okay, look, I'm reviewing my questions now. I need to warn people about page breaks. Yes, if you have page breaks, that can create some unique problems. There is a bit of a workaround for that, kind of beyond what I had prepared for this best kept secret, but if you run into page break problems, please call our help desk. There is a solution for that. Let's see. Is there a way to edit the trap in the future in case the data changes slightly? Yes, the answer to that is yes. If I go here to my desktop icon, and so I'm working on this in the future, and I just put my new month data, and I pull up my old month template, I'll click Edit Template. Now obviously this template fits because it's the same one, but I would go in here to Layer Manager, click Layer, and let's just say that next month, a lot of times what will happen on PDFs is that your data will shift like one space to the right or to the left. You could adjust your trap statement to coincide with the new month's data. You might have to tweak your columns a little bit to the right or the left. But yes, it is doable, depending on how closely or how non-close the data lines up the next month. Let's see. Got lots and lots of questions. They're all good ones. I'm just trying to CPE for this webinar, not for this one. Sorry to break that news to you. Someone warned about the future. There could be an invalid trap if it doesn't line up with the previous. That is true. It just depends on how badly aligned or misaligned your data is. How do I export the data of multiple line to an Excel file format? Okay, let me click that one real quick. So let's say you have this data in IDEA. To export any file out to Excel, you just choose Microsoft Excel, click. By default, the file will be exported to your Exports Library folder. If you choose to put it to your desktop or your network drive, you can do so and just say save and it'll go on its way. Okay, I'm going to open up the mic now. I believe we're at our 50-minute. I don't want to abuse your time. I just love doing this. I could answer questions all day, but I guess I better respect people's time, so especially our host for this, Lindsay. I'm going to open up your mic. If you're there, Lindsay, do you want to say any closing comments before we wrap this up? Hello to Lindsay. Okay. For some reason, I don't have Lindsay's mic open.
How about now,
I'm
Teresa?
going to, I believe what is going to happen.
Teresa,
very good. Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay.
I think I've concluded. Yeah, no problem. One of the things I'm sure people will be asking about, and I'm not, I think I've covered most of the questions. As you can see, we had quite a few come in.
Yes.
What will they receive this a link to download this PowerPoint, or how will that work?
Yes.
Or have we discussed that yet?
We recorded the presentation, and I will be sending this along with the slides that Teresa had created that unfortunately we weren't able to see. These will be emailed to you probably towards the beginning of next week, but it'll definitely be by the end of next week. And we
Okay.
do hope to have another webcast with Teresa in the next few months to show you guys some more tips. We will work on that on the back end and definitely be sure to let you know if we get something scheduled.
Yeah, I had one question come in. It says, what secrets are being kept for the sake of time? I love that question. It's kind of funny because as a trainer, we don't know what the secrets are. They're all just features, and we're not trying to keep anything secret. It's just a matter we don't, different people know different things. So what's a tip to one person may be old hat to another. So we'll just try to come up with some other ideas of what some people might not know on this.
Definitely. And thank you guys for attending. If you have any questions, you can email marketing@automation.com and I will shoot those to Teresa and we will get those answered and we'll follow up with you guys next week.
All right. Thank you so much. And
Thanks.
y'all have a great weekend. I'll go ahead and end this session. Thank you.